Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the October 3rd meeting of the City of Summit Zoning Board of Adjustment. Wow.
I don't think that was me, was it?
That wasn't me. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. My name is Joe Steiner. I'm the Vice Chairman of the Summit Zoning Board. In accordance with New Jersey Statute 10-4-10, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to a newspaper of record and has been posted here at City Hall. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. For the benefit of the interested public, this meeting is being live streamed on the city's YouTube page and also broadcast on Summit's governmental channels, which are Comcast Channel 34 and Verizon Channel 30. A transcript of this meeting is also being taken using the video and audio, so we need all speakers to utilize one of the microphones in the room, which means if you're going to be talking, we need you to come forward and use one of the microphones either at the podium or on the tables. Please note that the fire exits are to my right, your left, and at the back of the room where you entered. The city also has an assisted listening system to assist the hearing impaired. If anyone needs hearing assistance, please obtain the system at the dais and return it thereafter. Mr. Nicola, would you call the roll of members?
Certainly. Chairman Spur is excused. Vice Chairman Steiner?
Here.
Mr. Yuko?
Here.
Ms. Newell?
Here.
Mr. Mullen, we're expecting, but he is not here. Mr. Millet?
Here.
Mr. Loikitz?
Here.
Ms. Toth?
Here.
Ms. Sager?
Here.
Dr. Levine is excused, and Mr. Gonzalez.
Here.
All right, you have a quorum, you can proceed.
Okay. Andy Ball, sitting to my right, is the zoning board's attorney. He will be advising the board members on matter of law and is the key interface with the applicant's attorney. Mr. Ball does not vote on the applications. Chris Nicola is a city employee and is the zoning board secretary. Mr. Nicola works with the applicants on preparing their applications and planning our agendas and keeping our meeting minutes. Mr. Nicola also does not vote on the applications. Also with us on the dais is Stephanie Soulis, who is training to replace Mr. Nicola later this year, as he has accepted a position as a promotion in the city's Department of Community Services. We should also say that he probably won't be with us at our next meeting because he's getting married this weekend. Correct. Or that weekend, I guess the weekend just before. Correct. Also present is Chris Dower, the board's engineer, who is seated at the table to our right. The audience's left. Mr. Dower provides input to the board and also does not vote on the applications. And Mr. Dower, do you want to introduce your associate?
Yes, Dipti Sheth from our office is also here, and she'll be eventually replacing me as the board engineer.
Okay. Our board consists of 7 regular members and up to 4 alternates. All members can participate in the hearings, but a maximum of 7 can vote. Most applications require a simple majority to be approved. Some applications require 5 affirmative votes to be approved. You'll be told which majority will be required before we begin our deliberations. We generally hear the cases in the order that they're listed on the agenda, and we try to have each hearing last no more than 30 minutes. But we do understand that some cases are a little bit more complicated and need to be expanded a little bit. Each hearing begins with the applicant or their attorney providing an overview of the application and the variances that are required. We then hear from any expert witnesses the applicant may have to help explain the application and why the variances are needed. Board members may ask questions of the applicant, their attorney, and the expert witnesses. We also allow our experts to ask questions. Once the board members and the board professionals have completed their questioning, the public will have an opportunity to ask questions. That is not the time to tell us what you think of that application. That opportunity comes at the end of the hearing. Before you ask your question, again, please clearly state your name, spell your last name, and provide your address. It's important that our court reporter be able to keep a clear and accurate public record, and again, please use one of the microphones. After all the witnesses have been heard, members of the audience will have their second opportunity to speak, and at that time you can express your opinion, positive or negative, about the application. And for that process, you will be sworn. Then the public hearing is closed, and we enter into executive session where the board members discuss the case and vote. You'll be able to listen to our executive session, but you will normally not be able to participate in that discussion. Most applications are heard and decided in the same evening. If a case requires additional information or testimony that can't be provided tonight, we'll carry your case to another date, and it will not be decided during this meeting. Krista Anderson, the city's zoning officer, has asked that we remind all applicants that they must read carefully the resolution that documents the zoning board's decision and pay particular attention to any conditions that are contained therein. For example, if a landscaping plan is required, you must obtain one and submit it to John Linson, who is the city's forester. If a grading plan is required, you must have one prepared by a civil engineer and submit 3 copies along with the application fee to the city's engineering division. Failure to satisfy all the conditions in a resolution will result in a delay in approving your application, and that will also cause extra work for city and zoning staff. The resolutions documenting the board's decision are normally available 1 month after we decide the case. So at this point, what we're going to do is go down the list of cases that are on the docket for tonight, and I think we're going to probably be able to dispose of a couple of them that are going to be moved, and then we will ask you to come, in other cases, to come forward and tell us a little bit whether or not they can, how many witnesses they have, how many experts, and whether or not they can complete it in 30 minutes. 6 Essex is Charles and Jennifer Salzman.
Yes.
Please.
Good evening. My name is Britt Long of Dempsey, Dempsey & Sheehan, and I'm here this evening appearing for Charles and Jennifer Salzman in regards to an application for development at 6 Essex Road submitted to this board. They respectfully request that this matter be carried to a date certain, I believe November 7th, in order to allow their professionals time to prepare and submit additional plans which have been specifically requested by Ms. Anderson, the zoning officer. They further request that the board find that they need not renotice for future hearing.
Okay, and are the applicants waiving the time for the board to act?
Yes.
Okay. The date 11/7 is acceptable?
Correct.
For our calendar?
Yes.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board? We need a motion to carry it.
So moved.
Second? Second, Mr. Yuko?
Confirming that's carrying without further notice.
Right.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, should the record show that I'm now here?
Yes.
We will now show that I didn't know that until you said it. Thank you.
For the ease of a transcript, that was Mr. Mullen.
Thanks. Hello, guys up there. 226 Hobart Avenue, David Gilman and Jamie Levine.
Yes, David Gilman here on behalf of myself and my wife, Jamie Levine.
Okay, how many experts do you
We
have?
have 2 experts, both the architect and landscape architect, as helpful to walk through the details with you.
Okay, and you think you can do it within 30 minutes?
Indeed, we've prepared for 30 minutes, so pending Q&A, we should be good to go.
Okay, thank you. We'll
Thank
call
you.
you up. You'll be first on the list tonight. Christopher and Julia Bartlett, 72 Fernwood.
Hi, I'm Chris Bartlett. This is my wife, Julia. We live at 72 Fernwood in Summit. We're happy to be here to present the plans to you all tonight with our architect, David Rosen. Just
Okay,
one.
is he the only expert you'll
Yes,
be
sir.
bringing for it? Okay. Do you think you'll be able to finish this off in 30 minutes,
Yes.
David? Why do I know David? Okay, all right, you'll be second, so be patient with us. And last is, gee, we don't know this name at all. Melissa Spur, 61 Woodland Avenue.
I
Howdy,
am
David.
Dave Rosen, architect, to request that that this case be carried to a future date, whatever Chris Nicola determines.
I believe it's 11/21.
Correct.
I'm
is the
sure
date
that's
that
fine.
has been,
There was a request for a landscape plan that has been developed. It was submitted on Friday, and so it'll give the board time to review that.
okay, questions? None? The date would be, and you're waiving the time for the board to
Yes,
act?
absolutely.
And again, you're asking that it not be without further notice?
Correct.
Okay, I pick up every once in a while. All right, we're okay with a motion.
Motion to carry.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Okay, we have, thank you, David. You're not excused, you have a bunch to go. We have, we'll start with 226 Hobart Avenue, which is David Gallman and Jamie Levine, and Mr. Yuko is recusing himself. Anyone else? No, okay, so we're all, everybody else is here, okay.
You're on fire, Joe.
What?
You're on fire.
I'm trying. Okay, we're going to swear you in individually, and then we'll ask you to give us a brief overview of your case and introduce your experts.
All right, Mr. Gilman, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
David Gilman, Gilman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if you can explain why you're here and what your
Wonderful.
project's all about.
Thank you very much for the time and the opportunity to explain. My wife and I and 2 daughters moved to Summit about 8 years ago. We had fallen in love with the neighborhood before we came, and that love and appreciation for the neighborhood certainly grew over that time period. But after 6.5, 7 years, we realized the mix of inside and outside space in our first home was somewhat different than our lifestyle had evolved, and the timing was perfect as the beautiful home at 226 Hobart came on the market, which is in the middle of a neighborhood that has become very much our home. My wife and I deeply involved in the community there, Beacon Hill, and the Arboretum across the street, and the history of both the land and the house there dating back, the land to the Revolutionary War, the home somewhat more recently, but still with a wonderful bit of history and a beautiful wooded lot was incredibly appealing to us. We knew at the time that we made the purchase that we would think about making hopefully what were small modifications that would preserve the history of the land and the house and respect it, and had the advantage of being able to work with David Rosen and Jared Kest, who are the 2 witnesses here this evening on the architecture and landscape architecture, to come up with a plan to do that. One of the primary motivations of a notable change, I should say, has to do with the safety of the house with our children and dog. The driveway at the moment cuts between the house and the backyard, which we have found to be a difficult situation with delivery drivers, etc. And so you'll certainly see in the plan that one of the proposed changes driven by that safety question was to move the driveway to the front of the house, also restoring what we believe is really a beautiful historical main entrance on the front of the house, which goes unutilized today. There are a number of other changes that we can go through as you have questions. I think notably 7 variances that we hope to be modest and reasonable in nature that we can discuss as appropriate. But let me leave it there for now and preserve the time for the two witnesses and the questions that may come.
Okay, questions from the board?
I
Fiona?
have one, but it's
Applicant?
not really about the application.
Okay.
I had always understood that there was a big cannon on your property, the old
Yes.
sow. And
Yes.
I'm just looking for it on all of these.
Well, I think historically it sat on our front porch, or
Okay.
at least the historical marker, it sits in the middle of the front porch that goes unutilized today. So that's one of the shame of the current design, is nobody actually gets to see that. But indeed, I think, the history as I understand it, the Beacon Hill is not actually where the club sits, but where our home sits at the top of the hill. And it was both the fire beacon and then the cannon used primarily for the noise, not as an offensive weapon, but a warning to Washington's troops in Morristown.
So there is no cannon, just a mark.
Yeah, the cannon's gone.
Cannon's gone, okay.
So no
Okay.
safety concerns with cannons.
I was just looking all over the topography and not seeing one, so.
It would be fun if it was
And
there.
no leftover cannonballs either. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. Who is your first witness?
David Rosen.
You want to go with David first, okay?
Do you swear affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I
And
do.
Please state your name, spell your last name.
Dave Rosen, R-O-S-E-N, partner, Rosen Kelly Conway Architecture Design.
Thank you, and you've appeared before us a number of times.
Yes.
I assume no changes to your credentials since the last time?
Correct.
I imagine the board wants to accept you once again.
I think we can do that.
Great, thank you.
David, you're on.
Okay, I'm going to, well, this thing keeps shutting off, but. So just starting off, I'm going to show just a few photos, go through what the variances are, and then get into the drawings a bit.
All right, let's take care of the technical part first. You're going to provide the entire presentation to us as A1, because we don't have the photographs, I don't believe.
Do you not have them?
I would mark it as A1, just be
Okay.
cautious with
And
it.
just send
Fine.
them the disk.
Great.
Okay.
So this is a photo of the front of the house. Just for anybody who's wondering, we have at the bottom that it was taken by Garrett Rowe of our office. It says it in almost illegibly down here, but in any case, this is the way the house appears from the road. David mentioned the front entrance. This is the front entrance. That's the front door, and it's not so easy to find. You can't really stop on Hobart Avenue in front. There's no parking permitted. There's a single lane, a lot of traffic coming into Summit, going the other way, coming out of Summit, and so the goal would be to provide much better access to this front entrance and safer conditions throughout the property. So I'm just going to start off with the narrative that was submitted along with the information that you have. I will submit all of this. There are a few areas where I've highlighted some of the wording just so that you could see it a little bit more clearly. It is a 2.5-story shingle-style home constructed in 1908. David alluded to the historic aspects of the house. I won't focus on that, but it was one of the Twomleys who were influential in a variety of aspects in Summit. And the project is really, it consists of basically 3 parts. I would love to talk primarily about the architecture, because that's obviously the most important part, but we have two other parts, and that is a driveway, and along with a parking area, and then there's a patio. And I'll address each of those, but just going through here to continue, it's in the R43 zone. The lot area is substantially more than the acre that's assumed at a little over 76,000 square feet. So the variances that I'm going to describe here, I've started with the building itself. Krista Anderson has a different order, but I'll go to hers in just a moment. So the building currently is a tall building. It doesn't really show so much on the front of the house, but if we look at the back of the house, you can see that there's the house, the first floor is up in here, and you can see this big slope of coming down. It drops a total of about 40 feet from the highest point on the lot near the front door down to the lowest point that is near Beacon Hills skating rink. So that, because of the property and the slope of the property, and the way that the house was originally designed in 1908, the existing, which is supposed to be an average height of 35 feet, is, I'm going to round off, is a foot higher than that. And because we are adding a one-story addition to the back, that is on the first floor, we require a height variance because the property goes down. And so the house didn't get taller, but the ground got lower. So it goes from about 36 feet to about 37 feet from the average grade level around the house to the ridge. None of the addition that I'm going to show you on the house is visible from Hobart Avenue, so it doesn't change the perceived height of the house, but it's a technical thing. Going around to the back of the house, because the property descends, from the ridge down to the lowest point where the house meets the ground is currently about 39.5, and it's going to 42.9. Now, typically, the allowable from the very lowest point to the very highest point is 40 feet, so we need a variance for this as well. Then, just continuing on, there are some other variances. There's a variance for the driveway. There's the driveway, and then Jared Kest will talk more about the parking area. I'm sorry, and I'll do the driveway. So there's the width of the driveway in order to be able to make the turns safer for not only cars, but delivery vehicles, so that when an Amazon truck or UPS, they have a very difficult time right now. Even though the property currently has two curb cuts, one on Hobart Avenue, right against Beacon Hill, and the other one on Beacon Road, a car can get through there, but a truck can't, because there's a part of the house that's built out over that driveway. And actually, in looking at that driveway, you can see how close to the back of the house it is. I mean, it touches the back of the house. And then there's a retaining wall on this side, and then the property drops off. So our addition for a family room, which is coming out of this area, will extend just beyond this retaining wall, and that has to do with why there are the heights. And then, in order to have safer conditions, we're going to be changing the location of the entrances for the driveway from the street, both the one next to Beacon Hill, which is currently directly adjacent to a stone wall, which completely blocks your view out or somebody else's view of somebody coming out. We're going to move that one about 15 feet away from that stone wall to provide better views. And then the one on Beacon Road, which has a tight angle on it to enter, we're going to straighten that out, reduce the curb cut a little bit, and move that driveway farther away from the intersection, again, for safety. And we're moving this whole driveway to the front of the house. So I'll come back to that in a moment. But the driveway width has to do with two aspects of that new driveway at the front. One is to provide a drop-off space, not really a parking space, but Krista considered it to be similar enough to a parking space that for the purposes of tonight, that's a variance, and then the width of the driveway as well. And then the last variance has to do with the front yard setback to an accessory structure. On a corner lot, the typical front yard setback of 50 feet is different for an accessory structure. And that doesn't matter whether it's a patio that's in the ground or a pool or a detached garage or anything. It is required to be double that 50 feet, so it's required to be 100 feet. When we submitted this in the this narrative, it said 80 feet. There's actually another area that there are actually 2 small patios, and one of them is 80 feet, the other one is 70 feet away. So there are there's, whether that's 1 or 2 variances. It is a variance for an accessory structure on a corner lot without meeting the required double front yard setback. So that's a not so quick summary of the variances. And just to go back through some of the photos again, so we can see from the front, and across the middle here will be where the driveway will go. So let me just see if this will work. So the driveway is going to be hidden, but it will come essentially across there behind all those bushes, behind the trees, and it just makes for a much better access into the front door, which is here in the center. This second photo I've already shown you. This is the ground. So the average ground, the ground level runs essentially through here. There's a retaining wall, and then you can see how steeply this drops off from there down to the back. And we're going to be doing an addition that will be, I'll just use this, in this area. And the addition on the house is to make a new family room and to expand the kitchen. There's some other renovations we're doing inside with bathrooms and so on. Almost none of the areas that we're touching inside are original. The original parts we're leaving, but the kitchen has been redone in the past, and so we felt we had more of a free rein to be able to change that around. And I'll show you those in a moment. So the driveway, you can see that pretty clearly. Now to go to Krista's comments. So Krista's comments that we just received the end of last week, she says the same things. In addition to create a family room and to reconfigure and add on to the kitchen, remove the existing circular driveway from the rear yard and construct a new circular drive in the front. And then she adds at the bottom here, add a patio. The reason she has rear in quotes is that on a corner lot there is no rear yard, but it's perceived as the rear yard. Moving on to her comments then, sorry. In this paragraph, she just asks us to just acknowledge that the carriage house, which could be like a house on its own, it's 4 garage bays, and then there's sort of an apartment above. The use of that is just temporary, it's intermittent, it's not for rent. It is used very occasionally for, people have used it in the past for guests, that kind of thing, and will probably serve or may serve as sort of an interim home as we do some of the project that could be pretty messy inside the house. It has a full kitchen and everything else, but this asks for us to address the current use of the carriage house and the intended use going forward in order to make a showing that the non-conforming use has not been abandoned. It has not been abandoned, it has been used, it was renovated fairly recently. The ordinance says that if it's not used for a period of a year, then it's considered abandoned. So at least once a year, it's like those people who have to spend an extra day in Florida for their residency. In any case, it'll get used a few times a year just to maintain the ability to use that. So then, just continuing on, sorry, with her comments. So she lists the variants in the opposite order that I did, but she talks about the new circular driveway. She mentions a variety of things. The ability to have a circular driveway is relatively new in Summit's ordinance, and the requirement now is that before it was prohibited, even though it existed in a lot of places. But the property has to be at least 125 feet wide. This one is well over 200, so that's not a problem. And the driveways are both supposed to be on the same street. We don't have that. one is on Hobart Avenue, the other one's on Beacon Road. Those two entrances are generally staying, although some of the specific aspects of them, of the location, is going to be modified. So then we come to the other ones, the creation of at least one parking space in the front. I'll show you just real quickly on the site plan, and Jarrett can address that in more detail if needed. And then we get to the same statistics, the same items that I mentioned about the height of the house. The average height is going from approximately 36 feet to approximately 37. And as she notes, that means it's a 1.02 feet lower than the existing grade plane. And the overall height, meaning from the very lowest to the highest, is what I just mentioned. And then there's some steep slope disturbance, which Jarrett will address. She also mentions down at the end here this creation of a new patio. She took a surprisingly beneficial view of this, that it could be considered attached. This was nice because in the past we've tried to make that argument and it has usually been considered an accessory structure on other homes. But in any case, whatever the board feels, we feel that it's an accessory structure, even though it is attached, like you could walk to it. But we would request the variance for that. Just going on to the drawings, a couple photos. First, just wanted to show you that the intent here is that the driveway, Hobart Avenue is over here. This is Hobart Avenue over here on the right. The driveway will come from one side or the other, but let's take it from the Beacon Road side, that it'll come up this hill and right sort of in front of the house, and then come through sort of through this area. This is the front door is over here, and viewed the other way, coming around. All right, well now my pen, all right, my pen, oh, there it is. Okay, so coming across there with a parking area directly in front. You can see a little bit of the front walk in there. Anyway, so that's, and you can see it over on this side. So that's where the front driveway is coming. Then looking at the site plan, there are a few things that I'll identify. This is the same as the drawing that you have in front of you, and you can see Hobart Avenue is at the bottom here. There is a driveway on the far right, and this is a retaining wall right here, which is high enough so that if you're in a car, it's very difficult to see what's coming up Hobart Avenue. And Hobart Avenue in this area, a lot of cars come surprisingly quickly. But there's a rise there. There's a curve. There's not a lot of room on the property. So, I mean, in the street, there's the Arboretum below, Beacon Hill just to the right. So the intent is to move the driveway over to the right, and that's shown on this drawing, where you can see the driveway shifted over a little bit, the entrance. And then the main thing that you can see is the driveway comes around the front here, and there's a little bit of a pull-off area there so that somebody could drop something off. When the deliveries come, they would probably come in on in this area on Hobart, come through here, and then be able to exit out this way. So looking at that Beacon Road exit, currently it's fairly close to the corner, and it comes in a steep angle from Beacon Road, and then goes behind the house, and the obstacle is right here, because there's a covered deck that goes over the driveway. So the proposal is to shift that driveway a little bit farther away from the corner, come in, have a little bit more gradual, but this is one of the areas in here where there's the width of the property, the width of the driveway is more of an issue. The two patios that I mentioned, one is over here behind the house, and the other one is in this area. And the first one I just drew, this one is about 80 feet away, and the other one about 70. And they serve different purposes, and Jarrett will talk about that. But this is a quick summary of what we're planning to do. And with the addition is this L-shaped piece in the center here. And looking at that a little bit more carefully, the existing plan of the house, there really isn't a family room, because there wouldn't have been on a house of this age. And so the goal is to add a family room, this square in the back, and then to expand the kitchen to add this breakfast area. So that's really the addition on the house. And then some of the other modifications inside that don't really require a variance are in these areas that have been previously renovated. And we're leaving the dining room, the foyer, the living room as they are. And then on the back of the house, the existing rear of the house is shown up on the top. And again, the addition is this piece. And you can see that it comes down lower down here. That has to do with the height rather than the way the ground slopes. This is tracking the driveway along there. And so the addition is really just this part, which triggers all of this. Over here on the left is this covered deck. The deck is up here, and this thing spans over the driveway. So that's why trucks can't get through. So that's, I'll pause here and see if there are any questions for any of this.
Board member questions? Okay,
I
Chris,
ass-
I'll get to you. Figure you'll go on back it up.
I mean, I assume that even with all of the moved driveway and the new patios and everything, all of your lot coverages
Yes.
are all well within the maximums.
They're all conforming. One of the benefits is that this property is really quite large, but it's noted in the engineering report, both the numbers, and there are a couple of things to respond to. In number 10 in the engineer's report, it says that that the existing building coverage goes from 8.4% to 9.7%. So it even stays under 10%. 12% is the maximum permitted. And that building coverage includes not just the house, but also the carriage house, but there's also this fantastic tree house that's on the property that was one of the prior variances. Krista really filled up your packet with 3 prior variances on this property. One was for the tree house. One was for that deck area that goes over the driveway, and I forget what the other one is. But in any case, the building coverage is well under the allowable, and the impervious lot coverage, which is currently 18.37, increases to 24.6, and that's well below the allowable 30%. And the engineer's report also would like confirmation and testimony, which Jarrett will provide on items 9, which is about steep slope disturbance, and the width of the driveways and the curb cuts is number 13, and then number 14 has to do with the height of the retaining walls, any new retaining walls. And then actually, just a couple of things which I'll just cover that. Item 17 in the engineer's report asks that if a generator is proposed, it will be conforming if one is added. And then there was something about was there something about the location of air conditioners?
Yes.
Oh, that's
They
part
have
of
to
the same
comply.
one, yes.
Yeah.
So they're all, they're currently conforming, and anything that gets replaced or added would be conforming as well.
that'll be a condition, I assume? Or is it just, it doesn't need to be? Okay. Any more questions? Do you have more to present, or was
I
that-
don't.
Okay, because you indicated you kind of came to a stopping point.
Well,
You might have
yes.
more, I wasn't sure. Okay, Mr. Dower,
I have
what you
answers
got?
if there are
I just
questions.
wanted to ask about the driveway width.
Okay, go ahead, let's,
So on the driveway width, I totally get why you're moving to the front. I mean, those pictures sort of tell a story of safety there. Just in terms of the width, it seems like you're accomplishing the purpose of getting delivery trucks through just by moving it to the front. So can you talk a little bit more about the need to, I guess, widen it to the 21 feet as opposed to the 15 feet that's conforming? And the same thing with the parking space in the front.
Mhm.
You know, it seems like you have a fair bit of turnaround space near the carriage house. So,
Yes, there is turnaround space down here. That has been modified, but currently, trucks, if they come in, they get stuck back here. Let me just make that a little bit bigger. They get stuck back here. They don't really know how to get out. For the driveway, Jarrett will, as Jarrett Kess, the landscape architect, will address that a little more. This is a convenience for people just being able to drop off. If a truck comes up here, there's room to stop, deliver the package, and come out. And then the 21 feet, I think, is over in this area where there's a dimension that says 20.4, and actually 21 over here, to get, if there's a car, it's out of the way. But with the 4-car garage, they don't leave the car in the front. They're going to leave, the cars get put in the garage. I don't know if that answered why. Are you asking why would we need?
well, we've got a lot of variances that
Yes.
are going here. You know, we're always trying to minimize the number of variances that we wind up approving. So, you know, if they're like, and maybe Mr. Kess can speak to, you know, if there's an engineering necessity in terms of like how the slope of the land at that one point that you have to widen it out to get the right slope
This-
of the driveway. You know,
Yeah.
I just want to understand the need for it.
Right, and this part is in order to be able to enable the turn. It's not needed so much for cars, but maybe more for delivery vehicles, and Jared can address that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
okay, anything else from the board? Mr. Dower,
I think we'll hold off, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
okay. Let's clarify one thing. Are we asking for one variance or two variances for the patios? I wasn't sure which way you were going with that.
Well, I think that's up to the board. I don't know how that's determined.
What are you applying for, is I guess what I'm asking.
My understanding is they are asking for that variance. One area is going to be 70 feet, one area is going to be 80 feet, but we would essentially incorporate that into a single variance request for that creation, considering it as the detached, not being part of the attached accessory structure, just to be safe and have it clarified.
Yeah, it would
in
be
there.
easy to have this patio considered attached. So, but there's this one which is more sort of in nature, more individual stones. I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger so you can see that. And this is the one that we're seeking the variance for. If Krista's interpretation of saying that this patio could be considered attached because it's directly adjacent to the stairs and the pathways coming out of the house, both from the family room and from the existing sunroom. This one, however, just because of the spacing and the stepping stones getting to it, that's really the one that we would be requesting the variance for.
Okay, as long as you're comfortable with where we are. Okay. And no other questions for Mr. Rosen? Okay, would you like to call your second witness?
Jared Kess. We'll be happy to go through some of the landscaping plans.
Should I just turn this off? No. If you emailed it to me, then I can get it. be fine with that.
All right, and if you're going to be over there, we'll just move the microphone over.
All right, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And please state your name, spell your last name.
Jared Kest, K-E-S-T.
Thank you, and you've appeared before us a number of times as well. Any changes to your credentials since the last time?
No.
All right. I imagine the board would like to accept you once again.
Okay, let's, you're our witness, go ahead.
Great, thank you. So I can just walk you through the site plan. You know, I might pull up Dave's site plan, it might be easier, and then if we need to reference the rendering, we will.
We can do it any way that works.
I'll get it. Let me just get the scale. Like that? Sorry for my scribbles.
At least they're green. Okay. So I'll walk you through the property pretty quick. Dave did a very thorough job of doing that already. But to answer your very specific questions about driveway width, just to clarify a couple of things about the driveway width. On the architectural site plan, it's showing them as 21 feet in the one area, in front of the house, and 20.4 feet closer to Beacon Road. That's actually a measurement to the outside of the curb. The actual driveway width is 19.8 feet in front of the house and 19 feet in the other area. So we're talking about a 4.8 foot, deviation from the 15-foot allowable driveway width and a 4 foot. So that's just a little bit different measurement. So specifically, the whole entire project, as far as the driveway is concerned, is about safety. Dave discussed, the necessity to move the driveway over about 15 to 20 feet from the Beacon Hill property to allow for better sight lines towards the Route 24 part of Hobart Ave, which allows delivery trucks and so on to get in there safer, but also obviously guests and residents of the house. As you approach the front of the house, where my cursor is here, we widen that area for various reasons. One, for the convenience of day-to-day dropping off kids, picking up kids, all the things that happen at the front door of a house. And then when that happens, we have so many deliveries. I know I have 2 a day sometimes at my house. If a truck were to show up at that point, they should be able to flow through the property instead of having to back all the way back out to Hobart Ave or Beacon Road in this case. So that's area 1, allowing for safer passage if there was a car temporarily stopped in that area. The other area is also an access to the back part of the house where we have the main patio. We widen that for the same exact reason, because depending on the day, right, you might come in through the back door or you may come in through the front door. So we just created these 2 spots that make it less congested. So that's all. So really safety and congestion are the main reasons. Any questions about the driveway? Great. Just moving around to the house, you'll see off that one widened part of the driveway, you access this back patio. It's called new patio in the drawing here. And that is within a couple of feet of the main living space. And the intent is to create this exterior living space that feels like it's part of the main living space. It's just outdoors, right? And we create that space by building a retaining wall around the perimeter of it that varies in height from 5 feet at its lowest point to 10 feet at its highest point, which is really only for one small section where the site steeply slopes away from the property, and then quickly returns to about a 5-foot retaining wall and less as you meander around to the property. So where you would normally function or with an automobile or a person around the back of the property, we've created this terrace and series of walkway and stairs that will connect the Beacon Road side of the property to more of the, say, the garage side of the property. So now we have beautiful circulation for people to walk around the property, and we have really smooth flowing circulation for the people that live in this house to park in the garage, to temporarily stop in front of these 2 areas, and also have delivery trucks do, their thing. Any questions at that point?
Mr. Dowery?
The only, I think we talked about the parking area in the front, and that the cars would not be parked in there overnight. I assume that's the case. So
Yeah.
And I don't know if Krista mentioned that in her report, but I would wonder whether or not a condition could be placed that there's no overnight parking of cars allowed in that area.
Any issues with accepting that as a condition of the application?
No, I think as previously shared, thankfully, there's plenty of garage space, and for weather and other considerations, it's our habit every night to put the cars there, and we will continue to do so.
And as far as the widened driveway, I'd accept the safety issues going out onto Beacon Road, where it's widened up just from a visibility standpoint. The rest of it just seems to be, and I don't know if is the rest of the driveway conforming at 15 feet?
It is.
Okay. So it's just widened up at approaching Beacon, widened up in front of the house, and then just a little bit widened up where you have to make that turn to go up to the garage.
Right, it's unavoidable in that spot just to have a turning radius that works.
Okay, no further questions on the driveway.
Any other questions to the,
Are you adding stairs to the front?
No stairs on the front. Front entry, so the way that we graded the driveway, it really follows the natural grade for the most part, unless, where it slopes down, where we don't want to exceed the maximum 10% gradient for driveways.
I think there were stairs, like when I walked the property, there were stairs, not great stairs, but there were stairs going up
From the road?
from the road.
Oh, those stairs remain, we're not even touching those stairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
any other questions from the board? Okay, one thing I forgot to do was to offer the public an opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Rosen. So I'm going to do it for both of you at the same time. Is there anyone here who would like to ask a question of either of the witnesses? Seeing none. At this point, this now comes to the point where we give the public the chance to say what they feel about this application. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and tell us what they feel about this application? Thank you, Mr. Kess. Seeing none, this is time for you to have a summary of, David, are you coming back, or is the applicant normally gets to do that?
I think I would just like to thank everybody for the time and consideration, and thank you to Jarrett and Dave for walking through the details, and I think a very nice summary of the intent of the project.
Okay, David, you look like you have something you want to say. Okay. Then we will move into executive session conditions.
Yep, I have two. First is compliance with those conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum. And second is that the widened turnaround area of the driveway shall not be used for overnight parking.
And who would like to kick us off? No one wants to kick us off.
Okay. I'm not shy.
Cannonball.
No cannonballs.
Yeah. I certainly agree with the applicant and Mr. Rosen that a lot of this is a safety issue. Hobart Road can be really tricky at that stage, and particularly with even with the lot as large as it is, if the entire circular drive both entered and exited on Hobart, I think that would be an accident waiting to happen. I believe this lot is so unusually large for Summit, even for this part of Summit, that having a circular drive that enters and exits on two different roads is appropriate. They're both front yards. It is not as though we're doing a circular drive out the backyard or something like that. I'm not thrilled about the width of the driveway and the 2 points. I can live with it. You certainly you will not see the driveway from Hobart Road because you're standing below the road looking up. You won't see that drive. As to the patios, the slope on the lot is such that although it's a very large lot, the livable space of it is really much smaller than the overall lot itself. So you're required to bring the patios, the other outdoor livable space, closer to the front and the sides of the lot. I think that there's plenty of room. You're not going to impinge on any of the neighbors. And finally, again, the slope on the lot affects the average and the total height on the building. If this were a flat lot, they wouldn't be here for that portion of the variance requests. So for all of those reasons, I can support this application.
Anyone else wish to chime in?
Sure. I agree with a lot of what Claire said and said well. For me, I was trying to understand the intent of the driveway width restriction, and I would imagine it has something to do with we don't want to see a lot of paved front yards across Summit, so it's kind of a scale issue, right? We're talking about 76,000 square feet, trying to traverse across this large parcel and getting cars to navigate through that. It seems to me that you could add a lot more driveway and it would still not seem like you have a sea of asphalt in this yard. So to me, that's an entirely reasonable request. And then the building height variances, it's just simply math, right? They're obviously not trying to build some monstrosity, large-scale, overly hulking addition to this house. It's very complimentary. It's, you know, if you're trying to regrade to get the whole project to work, and then by that process, you end up with a slight height issue, I feel like that's something that we should be able to live with. So having said all that, I can be in favor of this project.
I'll just quickly say that I totally agree with your points about the scale of the driveway. I think that because both Beacon Hill, or I'm sorry, because both Hobart Ave and Beacon Road are actually roads that guests and, you know, teenage kids who are visiting, you know, contractors, you know, tradesmen, nobody can really park on those roads to access the property. Everyone has to drive onto their property if they're going to visit or, you know, pay a visit for any reason. So for that reason, they really do need, I think, this extra space and the extra width. And I think that the scale and size of the property will mask and hide the fairly modest, you know, places where it's a little bit wider. I think the scale will be taking care of it. And I think that they've done a great job of being very restrained in the addition that they're doing and being very sensitive to the historic nature of the property. I think they're vastly improving the property, and I support it.
Okay, I also can support it. The safety issue is important. That sight triangle on both of those corners. When I did my on-site thing, if you have video, it's laughable. I didn't get out twice, and trying to see anything down Hobart when you're backing out, even with a rear view camera, not easy. I got out. I didn't hurt any of your plants or any of those little signs there, but it would be funny if you had that video. I think I took 3 attempts to get out after I pulled in, which was the mistake to begin with. But anyway, everything you presented makes a lot of sense, and I can certainly support it and would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, I don't know who got the second. Who was first?
I think Claire got it.
Whoever.
All right, we'll give it to Claire.
Claire got the first second.
Claire got it?
There we go, I like that. All right, Ms. Newell.
You got the bronze.
Mr. Mullen?
Yes.
Mr. Millet?
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz?
Yes.
Ms. Toth?
Yes.
Ms. Sager?
Yes.
And then Vice Chairman Steiner.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
David,
Good
do
luck.
you need a few minutes to, or you're ready to fly for number 2? Okay. I didn't know if you needed a break or not, then we will go ahead with Christopher and Julia Bartlett, 72 Fernwood.
Yeah, we'll keep it. Got to be cautious for the record. Yeah, can you just write A2 on it?
Oh, we didn't enter that? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you couldn't make that a condition.
No.
Okay, the Bartletts are here, and Mr. Ball will swear you in.
Will you both be testifying?
Why don't we just swear you both in?
Safer that way. Both of you can raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
And then one at a time, please state your name, spell your last name.
Julia Bartlett, B-A-R-T-L-E-T-T.
And Christopher Bartlett, B-A-R-T-L-E-T-T. Thank you.
Okay, can you explain your project and tell us who your witnesses are and what you can tell us about why you're doing this?
Sure. So thank you very much for the time tonight. We appreciate it. So my wife and I moved to Summit in early 2019 after we had 2 young children in the city. We found ourselves in a truly unique position of needing more space. So she grew up in the area, so moved to Summit in early 2019 to the house on Fernwood, which we very much like the community and love our house. We bought the house really with the intent, I think it was built in 1997. We bought the house really with the intent of making some aesthetic changes to the back half of the house that we're going to talk about shortly. We figured we'd do it after a couple of years, and lo and behold, here we are. The kitchen is original to the house, which I believe, like I said, was built in 1997. So we really have 2 intents. The first is really just an aesthetic update to the kitchen without really changing any of the major components or where they sit. And the second is a change to the location of the patio, which I'm sure David will take you through it, but it kind of sits almost hemmed into the garage, and we'd like to move it out into the kind of the yard slightly to provide for a little bit more open kind of area to be outside. And I think the patio itself will get slightly smaller than it is currently. I think if there is a major change, it's really the exit to the kitchen onto the patio, which is through a single door, and it kind of requires it's kind of a narrow exit, and you have to make a turn to get onto the patio, and we'd like it to flow a little bit more naturally, from the kitchen. It does require, I believe, 2 variances, which we hope are relatively modest. And the patio itself, its location is not moving much. I think it will vastly improve our experience in the backyard. And if you've seen the house or been there, the backyard is remarkably private for the lot that it's on, even in the winter. So I don't think it's really a noticeable change. So I think that's the summary. And happy to have Dave present the details or answer any questions.
Okay, before we go any further, let me report that Mr. Yuko has rejoined us and will be eligible to vote. Any questions for the applicant? I don't know if you had anything to add?
No.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? If not, Mr. Rosen, I think you're up.
Just any questions from members of the public as well for the applicants? I assume not. Note for the record, Mr. Rosen was just sworn in the prior application. His credentials were accepted, and you can proceed.
Thank you.
So the house at 72 Fernwood, I think that the Bartletts are the 5th owner of this property. And there was some question about how the lot coverage, how did that come about? And there's also a question about building coverage. These are the 2 variances that we're here for. Let me just go through a few things here. This is a photo of the front of the house. This is on the photo board that was submitted. It's just a little larger here. You can see the whole photo board here. And then as Chris was mentioning, I'll come in on this one. At the back of the house, currently, there is a patio which butts up against the garage on the right side and the back of the kitchen as it goes toward the front and toward the family room on the left side in this drawing. Our proposal is to remove this patio and create a new one, which coincidentally is almost exactly where this shadow line is. I don't know if the guy in my office who took this photo really thought that through, but it's a lucky break here. So anyway, so the patio, the new patio will be smaller than the existing. We are proposing to reduce the lot coverage toward conformance, but not achieve conformance. And then with building coverage, there's a slight change that has to do with not so much the addition to the house, but the landing coming out. And I'll show you this in a moment. But this corner of the kitchen is moved over 2 feet to about the edge of this. So there's a 4 square foot, that's it, there's 4 square feet that's added to the house. And normally that would be an increase in the building coverage. In this case, it isn't, because this roof overhang is more than 2 feet. And as you know, building coverage, for when a roof overhangs 2 feet or less, nothing counts. When it overhangs more than 2 feet, in this case it's about 3 feet, the whole 3 feet counts. So even though we're adding a little bit in this corner, which really, I know people use the word de minimis at times, this really seems like it, but the increase in building coverage is a total of 18 square feet, and that is because the landing, we're going to replace these windows and this door with French doors across this area and a landing down here, which is raised up just a little bit more than 1 foot above the ground. So starting with Krista Anderson's comments, she notes, as I mentioned, this 4 square foot addition to the kitchen for a new and a new platform and steps from the existing breakfast area to the new patio. So where she describes the proposed, ignore that one. Anyway, the proposed coverage is 34.5 for lot coverage. It is currently 34.9, and it's being reduced by 84 square feet. So that's the reduction in lot coverage, but it's more than the 30%, which is the usual limit for this zone. Just as a quick comment, this is in the R25 zone, but the property is not 25,000, it's about 20,000 and change. If it was 25,000 square feet, both of the building coverage and the lot coverage would be conforming. So the building coverage, Krista says, because we had said that the building coverage of 16.4, whereas 14% is the maximum permitted. In the engineering report, it is more correctly calculated at 16.7. Just before this meeting, I went through just did the arithmetic, and it is 16.7. And it essentially stays at 16.7. I know that the 18 square feet is just about 0.1%, but just rounding off up or down, it ends up being essentially the same. Anyway, those are the two variances, and I don't think that there was anything else that Krista had, and so I showed you the photos, and then just going to the site plan. On the left over here is the site plan showing the existing house and everything on the property, and the patio is that. And the proposal is to move the patio to there. And then this is the landing, so that's the building coverage, and then there's just a walkway to get there, to the patio. So overall, this little, the landing, which is right in here, that adds the 18 square feet. And it's not even 2 feet above the ground, it's maybe 1.5 feet, but it counts in building coverage. Because even if we raise the ground level, it's measured off of both the existing ground level and the proposed. But anyway, and then the patio will sit, I think, much more beautifully outside, more in the landscape, instead of being sort of jammed right up against the house. So there's planting that'll be all the way around this. So that's most of it, but just if you wanted to see it just a little bit bigger. 1 second. So this is the house, and again, the patio is this rectangle currently, and the new patio is somewhat smaller in a different location, does not extend beyond the sides of the house, so that the right side over here is in line with part of the house, although the house does jut out a little bit farther this way. It does not go as far back as the back of the garage. So it's that rectangle plus the walkway and then the landing here. Just looking at one other drawing to look at the back of the house, I mentioned that we were replacing these windows with French doors. And so that's it. And then there's just, when you step out of the house, there's just 3 more 6-inch steps coming down to the walkway and to the patio. I mentioned that I think that they're the 5th owner. Dixon and Diane Peer built the house. We did the design for it in '96. The house was built in '97. It was then sold to somebody, but I forget who that was. But at some point later on, the house was sold to Mark and Katie Yeager, and then to Mark and Erica Melchiori, and then to Chris and Julia. The patio, I think, has been there. I don't know if it was from the very beginning, or whether it was done by the first owner to live there. I think that that's what had happened. I did bring a copy of our drawings from when we designed it, and there are a couple of things that are interesting about that. I'd be glad to pass it around if you want. I didn't scan it and put it in here, but it shows within that area that I was identifying, and I'll just diagram it in here.
Are you submitting that as A2?
Sure.
Okay. And the A1, by the way, is your whole package, because the photograph, and we'll get back to certifying the photographs, they were not submitted.
The photos were not submitted?
No.
If they're electronic, we still mark them at the meeting.
Fine, okay.
I mean, none of us got them, so I haven't seen them.
Okay. Because we had the photos, so
Okay, so, but
I'll
we
just
can-
check in my office to make sure that we send the photos. I thought that we had sent them electronically, but
You
if
may
that's,
have, but they.
if that
didn't
doesn't-
get- They didn't get in the package.
if it doesn't get to you, okay. So on these drawings somewhere, it shows an area that is indicated as deck or terrace optional. I'm just going to, I'll just quickly pass it around. Can I start it this way? Sure. And so it's right where it's in the area. The current patio extends farther, and that's what I think somebody did, but our drawings show this. And I think that the reason, so that's deck, or currently it extends out here, bigger, and I think that was done and was not in conformance, and I don't think anybody got a variance, but I think that may have been the first owner who lived there.
Do you think that was original to the house, or did they get their C of O and then maybe expand a little
I
bit.
think that they got the certificate of occupancy, just to show you this area, the patio, the patio currently extends farther back, but this area was what we had put on our drawings. So the patio extends back here. We had this. And it's an odd number that, like 16.7, but with this, it gets to just short of 18%. In talking with Chris and with, this is the area, and currently it's out here. So this says deck or terrace house. I'm pretty sure that, and I called a number of people, I called Jim Weber, and I called Chris, I spoke with Chris about this.
Dave, if you could just go back to the mic, sorry.
I spoke with Jim Weber, who's a local attorney who does land use, and I asked him what is his recollection of the pretty trivial kind of question for somebody to ask, but what was the building coverage permitted in 1996 or 97 in the R25 zone? And I thought it was 18%, and I think that that's one of the things that was changed when the ordinance was updated. There were a number of changes. A few properties got moved from one zone to another. But I'm pretty sure that that was the case. And that's why the building permit was issued with that, where it said deck or terrace, both of which are implied to be above that 1 foot, that those are optional. And so then I think that somebody who bought the house then made a bigger patio, and I think expanded the driveway a little bit as well. So that's how we get to the numbers that are currently 34.9 and then being reduced to the
34.5.
Right.
And it is the applicant's testimony clearly that they did not increase it. when
That's
they got
correct.
it,
I have
which
the...
is what we would always be looking for to begin with.
Right, I have we have the survey from when they bought it. We have the survey from when the Melchioris
Right.
bought it. I don't have the survey from when the Jaegers bought it, but my recollection is that the driveway has essentially always been this way, and I think that, to your point, I think they got the building, they got the certificate of occupancy when the house was built, and then that first owner who lived there did what they wanted or something. And so the building coverage was because the ordinance, I believe, has changed. I don't have the evidence of that. I have old ordinances, but I don't have that one. And the city does not seem to have a copy of the ordinance from that time.
I know Krista was looking for it, but she didn't
Yeah.
submit anything to the
I
contrary.
didn't talk with Bart Sheehan from Dempsey and Sheehan. He has, I know right where it is in his library, where he has old ordinances. Because I asked him, what are you keeping those for? And he said, well, you never know, you might need that.
And now you know.
Anyhow, so the building coverage variance is a real minor thing of the increase in 18 square feet, but I think that the reason that it's over is because of the change of the ordinance in the last 25 years. And the lot coverage was, I believe, is over because somebody just did that, but it was not the Bartletts, it was not the Melchioris. I don't think it was the Jaegers, but I think it was the people, the first ones to actually live there.
So I have one question about the building coverage. I want to make sure we get our resolution right. Everybody seems to agree it's an 18-foot increase, but as you noted, Chris has that would make it 16.4%, and you and Mr. Dower seem to think that makes it 16.8%, and I'm just wondering what we should go with.
We have the square footage, and that's the number, and if you do that arithmetic, it comes out to the 16.7, or 16, depending on how you're rounding, 16.7 or 8, that Mr. Dower has on the engineering report, and which we have on our drawings that were submitted. My narrative and Krista's comments have the lower number, but I believe both of those are
Are we
incorrect.
trying to say Krista made a mistake?
I'm not trying to say that. I just,
The engineering report does indicate it's going from 16.7% to 16.8%, so
Yes, okay.
normally what we would do
It's a
is-
rounding off
Yeah.
thing, yes.
So that figure of 3411 square feet for 16.8% is normally what I would go with in a resolution, and normally what I would suggest the board should be considering.
okay, so rather than Chris's 16.4, we're going to go with the engineer 16.8. Okay. Either way, it's the same 18-foot increase. It doesn't, it's the same increase.
Okay, any other question?
I just
okay.
wanted to address a couple of the comments in the engineering report. Item 8 says the applicant notes that no steep slopes are to be disturbed. The property does have quite a bit of slope from high on the back left to low on the back right, but there's a retaining wall in there, there's landscaping, and then the property does drop off. But in the area where we're doing the addition, there's no steep slope in this photo. Okay. Item 9 is just what Mr. Ball just read, and we'll go with, I think that it's safe to go with those numbers. When there's arithmetic to be done, I always count on the engineers to get that right before anybody else. Item 10 just has those statistics, and I don't think that there was any question about that. But item 11, the existing air conditioning units and generator are in a conforming location. I have just on the drawing, it shows them. It shows them on the side of the house over here on the right side. The setback line is clearly way beyond that. So these are all, they're all conforming. And I think that was all. Mr. Dower, was there anything
The only
else?
other question was just to confirm that the proposed patio is going to be at grade.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions?
That was it, Mr. Chairman.
And that concludes all I have.
Okay, questions from the board?
What's that question? I have a question regarding this rock wall that crosses the patio.
The what that crosses?
It's, if you see, look at the survey, the proposed and the existing, there is some rock wall.
A rock
that's
wall?
like
Oh,
almost
yes.
yeah, what's that?
So on the existing, this rock wall is this. It's just this piece that's on the edge of the patio.
Gonna
See it
be
on the
removed
photo?
Or it stays?
Pardon me?
It's gonna
It goes
be
away.
removed?
It goes away.
Okay.
We're lowering the patio. The patio will be at ground level. That wall goes away.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Other questions? Questions? Questions from the public? Anyone from the public wish to ask a question of this witness? Seeing none. Are there any persons from the public that would like to express an opinion on this application? Seeing no one coming forward, is there anything you'd like to say in summation?
No, thank you. Just thank you for the time. We hope these are relatively modest tweaks, so thank you.
Okay, conditions.
I just have our usual compliance with those conditions noted in the board engineer's memorandum.
Okay, we can move into executive session. Anyone wish to kick it off?
I'll go, I guess. So these are very minor additions, and I don't think they have any negative impacts. I would say that the applicant faces a hardship due to the mystery actions of a predecessor owner. So with that, I can approve.
Yeah, I can support it as well. I think, if there is such a thing as de minimis variances, this might be it. There's an improvement in the lot coverage, and the small increase in building coverage is really not significant. The forester notes that there's no need for additional screening, so that really eliminates that, any kind of concern like that. So I'll support the application.
Anyone else?
Just
Okay.
add 2 points. They do, the applicant do have a hardship in that the lot is undersized. And although Mr. Rosen didn't point it out, I was surprised. The existing patio seems fractionally to be beyond the setback. So by pulling the patio in and shifting it, you're actually reducing the amount of coverage beyond the building envelope.
I can support this as well, and I think we're cleaning up the city's record so that we'll know exactly if this ever comes back for anything future, we'll know exactly what was approved, when it was approved, and we won't have to question who did what when. So we're glad you did that for us, and I think I can support this one because it's really the definition of de minimis. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved to approve?
Second.
Chris?
Sure, Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Ms. Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Mullen,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz.
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
and Vice Chairman Steiner.
Yes.
All right, motion carries.
Okay, we now go to the, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We're
Good
going to
luck.
do a little bit more business, so as, but, you know.
Chris, I'll give you all of
And we
this.
now have the Chris show, or are we doing Stephanie's show?
I think it's still the first show for a little bit longer.
Thank you.
So, I guess I'll roll with it.
Yep, it's all
So,
yours.
183 Ashland Road is our first resolution to memorialize. Application ZB 22-2141. Our eligible voting members are Vice Chairman Steiner, Mr. Yuko, Ms. Newell, Mr. Malay, Ms. Toth, and Mr. Gonzalez. Would somebody like to move that?
So moved.
Yeah, just like to put on the record that there was a concern about whether or not the zoning officer agreed with it. That actually has been satisfied, and anybody in the public who needed to know that can now know that that's done and finished.
Excellent point, Mr. Vice Chairman. Okay, so we have the motion to approve from Ms. Newell. Who had the second?
Second?
All right, Vice Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Mr. Yuko,
Yes.
Ms. Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Ms. Toth,
Yes.
and Mr. Gonzalez.
Yes.
All right, our next resolution is 2 Woodmere Drive, application ZB 22-2138. Our eligible voting members are Vice Chairman Steiner, Ms. Newell, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, and Ms. Toth. Would somebody like to move that?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Vice Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
and Ms. Toth.
Yes.
All right, and the last resolution is 69 Pine Grove Avenue, application ZB-22-2143. And eligible voting members are Vice Chair Steiner, Ms. Newell, Mr. Malay, Mr. Loikitz, and Ms. Toth. Need a motion for that?
So moved.
All right, Vice Chairman Steiner,
Yes.
Ms. Newell,
Yes.
Mr. Malay,
Yes.
Mr. Loikitz,
Yes.
and Ms. Toth.
Yes.
All right, and we have 2 sets of minutes. Andy, can we move them both in one? I never do, but I never.
Separate ones to be safe.
All right, I tried. All right, first is August 1st, 2022 to approve. Do we have a motion? And a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. And next is September 7th, 2022 minutes. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
And a second? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none.
Okay, our next meeting is Monday, October the 17th. We did have an executive session meeting at the end of our last meeting. We will have another one scheduled, I believe, for the 17th.
Yes.
And there will be more to come on that later. We are adjourned. I have to bang the gavel for a moment.
Now we're adjourned.